about something that a lot of people have trouble with, and that is how to isolate your lats on a back day. A lot of people have trouble really squeezing their back muscles and actually feeling it in their back muscles when they do rows and pulls and sorts of things. They instead revert to using their biceps and they get a huge arm pump. And I hear this problem all the time. People are always asking me, how do I really isolate my back and how do I take my bicep out of the movement? So before I tell you the 3 tips that I use to really isolate my back, I'm going to have the lovely Lanky Progress TV here. He has his own channel. If you have not seen it, you can check it out in the description below. I'm going to give you a quick anatomy lesson so that you can understand where the lat is before we actually talk about how to isolate it. So, the lat originates, it starts in the lower 6 thoracic vertebrae. So that means right about here is where the lat is starting. Then it inserts over here and something called your intertubercular sulcus of your humerus bone, your upper arm bone. So basically, the muscle goes like this, like a big span, like a big wing. And what it does is it works to adduct, take your arm, your elbow, and your humerus, and pull it into the center line of your body. Now before I tell you tip number 1, I want you to do this before you actually start your back day next time. Raise your arms in front of you and bring them down to your hips. Bring your hands down to your hips, and while you're doing that, contract your lats. Think about pulling your lats down. Do it again, and again, and again, and every time squeeze your lats. Eventually you should start feeling blood build up in your lats. If you're not able to do this, then you haven't even started the mind-muscle connection between you and squeezing your lats. You really need to do this every single back day until you can really concentrate on how to contract your lats to bring your elbows downwards. Now tip number 1, and this is the tip that I love the most. This is the one that I think really helps me build a mind-muscle connection between me and my lats when I'm doing back, and really helps me build a good pump in my lats and not my biceps. When you're doing any sort of lat exercise, you're doing a cable row, you're doing a pull down, you're doing a pull up, doing whatever you're doing, a lot of people think about this. Let's give you an example. We're doing dumbbell row. So let's pretend there's a bench right here and we're doing a dumbbell row. Now when people do the dumbbell row, usually they think about just pulling that dumbbell up to their torso and dropping it. Just getting the numbers out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't do that. You don't want to think about pulling your hand to you. You want to think about pulling your elbow backwards. Tip number 1 is to think about pulling through your elbow, not your hand. Squeeze the dumbbell as hard as you can with your hand and then forget about the dumbbell. Just think about pulling your elbow back, squeezing your lat tight, and then lowering your elbow. Never think about your hand. Elbow back and down. What this does is causes you to think mentally about what the lat actually does. Instead of thinking of trying to row it, which is going to pull your bicep into it, you're thinking about pulling your elbow closer to your midline. That's technically what you're doing, and it's going to build a really nice mind-muscle connection. And this is the number 1 tip that I can tell anyone, and the one that I use every single time that gives me a great pump when I do lats. Elbows, and pull them back. Think about pulling with your elbows. Now tip number 2, you want to squeeze with your lats all the time. Now I know this is kind of hard to think about, but just try this. Do that thing I was telling you about with the warm-up. Squeeze your lats and think about contracting them. Think about how to contract them. Now, every time you perform a rep, think about that same squeeze you do. Squeeze, let it up. Don't let go of the squeeze. Still squeezing. Even though you're stretching your lats, you're still squeezing them. And when you pull it back, squeeze them as hard as you can. When you get to the bottom of the movement or when you get the row closest to you, squeeze them. Feel them tighten up. Think about keeping them tight while you're letting the weight back down. Keeping them tight. Rowing it again. Tighten them up. Always, always, always keeping it tight. And this tip goes over to anything you're doing. If you're doing a chest press, if you're doing some sort of machine or something, you're squeezing your chest. Think about squeezing your chest. Now do that the entire time. You come to the top where you could let it go, right? Keep squeezing them. Never let go of that tight contraction you have in your chest and let it back down. Always contract your lats. Because the moment you stop squeezing with your lats, your body will automatically let your biceps take control of the rowing motion. If you don't squeeze your lats, you will squeeze your biceps and you will burn out. And the last tip I can give you guys is to always pull downwards. Now what I mean by this is that you always want to pull your elbow down. Try this right now. Pull your elbow directly behind you, but not down, just straight back. Where do you feel that? You squeeze with your rear delts if you just pull your elbows back. Now try this. Try literally just pushing your elbows straight down, just like that. Where do you feel that squeeze? Right in your lats. So whenever you do, for example, let's say an isolateral row, right, where the machine is like this and you're pulling it down like this. A lot of people will just pull down and let it back up. Instead, think about pulling these handles, instead of just pulling them to your chest, think about pulling these handles down through the ground and forcing your elbows to come down and push downwards. The same thing with a seated cable row. Instead of just pulling it back like this, try to pull it down, 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 down. You should end right where your hip bones are and push down as you're pulling. On anything you do, a dumbbell row, pull down, elbow down as you're pulling it backwards, down to your hips and backwards. That diagonal and downwards movement will cause an extreme contraction in your lats and cause you to contract your lats instead of relying on your biceps. So they're the 3 tips that I've gathered to really contract my lats very well from the 5 years that I've been lifting. I think it's really cool when someone is able to think about what actually helps them and then put it into words for others to try. I want you guys to try these tips out for yourself on your next back day, and next time you're doing lats and you feel your arms pumping super hard and you're just like, damn, my lats are not getting a pump, I know that my lats aren't getting worked, stop for a second, breathe, and think about these tips. Try some of them out. Try lowering the weight and feeling the pump in your lats, and see if you can change your workout from being bad and just getting a bicep pump to changing it and actually making it a really great back day. Alright guys, thank you for checking out the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of going into my mind and seeing what tips and tricks and stuff that I use. If you want me to make more of these videos, or you have a type of muscle that you want me to help you with tips, then just let me know in the comments below. Other than that, lift heavy or you will die MIRIN. Team Beyond the Week, go lift heavy.